السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أهلا وسهلا مرحبا. Welcome to this video, guys. I hope you guys are enjoying yourselves, having a wonderful time. My name is Liaquat. This series is called the Mukhtasar al-Qudoori series, and we have almost reached near the end of the chapter of Hajj. And mashallah, it's been a very, very enjoyable journey, and it's not over by any means, not over. You can say possibly we've covered maybe a quarter of the book, if we're being very generous there. Quarter, right? Maybe a fifth of the book, quarter of the book. So may Allah give us tawfiq to continue this book and complete it with consistency. Ameen. Right, so this series now we are going to go through. So what I normally do is I explain difficult words, and then I kind of like try to explain a bit of tarkib, a bit of Arabic grammar, and then we explain the text itself. And I've always been asking you guys, shall I cut down the Arabic grammar? Shall I continue it? And a lot of you guys have been saying to me, please continue it. So I thought to myself, you know what, I'm going to continue, inshallah. So Babu Jinayat al-Muhrim. So Jinayat is from the word Jana Yajni, right? Jinayat, which means offense. Right? So Jinaya is like an offense. It's like a crime. Muhrim, obviously, is someone in the state of Ihram. إذا تطيب, to perfume oneself. Yeah, so تطيب means to use perfume. Okay, so to use perfume. Al-Muhrim فعليه الكفارة. So kafara, he has to give compensation. فإن طيب عضوا, طيب, to perfume, again, this come again. عضوا is a limb. Yeah, one limb. Kamilan, complete. Right, so full limb or complete limb. Fama zada, it means or more, beyond that. Fa'alayhi dam means blood, but here it refers to a sacrificial animal. So whenever it says alayhi dam, basically means you have to sacrifice an animal. Yeah, so sacrificing is where you slaughter an animal, then you give it to the poor, the meat. طيب أقل من عضو فعليه صدقة. You know what that means. وإن لبس means to wear. That's where it's come before as well. To wear clothing. ثوبا, a thobe. مخيط means stitched. Yeah, so stitched clothing. أو غطى, to cover. غطى يغطي رأسه, his head. يوما كاملا فعليه, then upon him عليه دم. Right, so dam is again blood again. وإن كان أقل من ذلك فعليه صدقة حلق. وإن حلق, to shave. Right, الربع, a quarter, this word has come before as well. رأسه, head. فصاعدا, or more. Yeah, like زاد. عليه دم وإن حلق أقل. أقل means less. عليه صدقة. وإن حلق مواضع. مواضع is جمع of موضع, which means place or location. محاجم is جمع of محجم or محجم, places of hijama. Yeah, محاجم, محجم or محجوم. Yeah, from the word hijama. Right, so محجم is referring to the spots, the places where hijama takes place. So I don't know if you've ever seen hijama take place. I'll explain it when I'm explaining the text. من الرقبة, from the neck, the back of the neck is called the raqaba, in fact. عليه صدقة. Okay, let's move this up a bit. Let's see what else we've got to deal with here. Right, so is the writing the right size? Is it large enough? Put in the comments. صدقة. الظافير is the jam of dhufar, which means nail. Dhufar, yeah, nails. So nails, your fingernails, toenails. يديه, his hands. رجليه, his legs. It's come before. قصة, it means to trim. Yeah, to trim, to cut. يدا, hand, foot. وإن قصة أقل من خمسة is 5. الظافير, we've done that. متفرقة, scattered. Yeah, تفرق, scattered. صدقة, in the يوسف عليه الدم. وإن تطيب أو حلق أو لبس من عذر, with an excuse. وهو مخير, is given a choice. ذبح الشاة وإن شاء تصدق على 6 مساكين. 6 مسكين is poor, we've done that before. أصوع is the jama of sa', which means a cup that is about 3.2 liters. Right, so a large cup. من طعام وإن صام 3 أيام. Okay, so Let's have a look now at the meaning or the grammar of this. So, as you guys know, Babu Jinayat al-Muhrim. Yeah, so this is Muhrim. هذا مبتدا, then خبر. إذا تطيب from باب تفعل. So this is a فعل. Muhrim is the fa'il. عليه كفارة is the مبتدا. كفارة is the خبر مقدم. In طيب, this is not طيب يطيب, whereas before it was تطيب. This is a فعل plus the fa'il. And udwan kamilan, sifa mawsuf becomes the maf'ul bihi. فما زاد is fi'l fa'il. عليه دم, again مبتدا خبر. So whenever this happens, remember that. طيب أقل is مفعول به غير منصرف, so that's why it takes single. من أدو فعليه صدقة, again this is considered to be the مبتدا. وإن لبس ثوبا مخيتا, this is مخيت. Okay, so this is all that is the مفعول به موصوف صفة. غطى أو غطى رأسه مفعول به يوما كاملا. Now this, does anyone know why this is mansub? Right, let me know in the comments. فعليه دم, so this is the مبتدا and خبر again. وإن كان أقل قل, again this is the خبر of كان this time. من ذلك فعليه صدقة. وإن حلق or حلق, no حلق means to hover over. حلق ربع رأسه مضاف إليه. فصاعدا مفعول مطلق. عليه دم مبتدا خبر. وإن حلق أقل من الربع فعليه صدقة, again مبتدا. وإن حلق مواضع المحاجم, again مفعول به من الرقبة فعليه دم. Okay, let's move this up. Right, so I think by now you guys have got the hang of تركيب, إعراب تركيب. عند أبي حنيفة وقال أبو يوسف ومحمد عليه صداقة. صداقة is the مبتدا خبر. وإن قص أظافير. Now أظافير is غير منصرف, okay, what we call جمع منتهى الجموع مفعول به. Actually, my mistake. It is جمع منتهى الجموع, but it's not غير منصرف because it's a mudhaf. Whenever a mudhaf is a غير منصرف, the rules of غير منصرف no longer apply to it. ورجليه, and that's عطف onto there. فعليه دم, again مبتدا. وإن قص يدا مفعول به أو رجلا عطف. فعليه دم. وإن قص أقل, this is مفعول به من 5 أظافير, again this is غير منصرف. Now see that. من 5 أظافير. 5 أظافير. So this is 5 أظافير. من 5 أظافير. أظافير متفرقة. Yeah, because this is the صفة of أظافير. Yeah, so 5 أظافير متفرقة. من يديه ورجليه فعليه صدقة. عند أبي حنيفة وأبو يوسف وقال محمد عليه دم. This is the مبتدا. وإن تطيب أو حلق أو لبس من أذر فهو مخير. إن شاء ذبح شاة مفعول به. وإن شاء تصدق على 6 مساكين ب3 أصبع من طعام. وإن شاء صام 3 أيام. Okay, that's it. Alright, so let's have a look at the meaning of this then. So what is the meaning of this? So this is talking about those offences that a person commits, those offences that a person does to the rules of Ihram. Right, so what kind of offences might a person commit with the rules of Ihram? Now, if you watch my crash course on Hajj and Umrah, there I've explained these kind of things that will be considered offensive if you commit them. Right, so things that are considered to be offensive if you commit them. So what are the offensive things in the state of Ihram? So number 1, all right, is perfuming. Wearing perfume in the state of Ihram is considered to be a very serious crime, right? So if you wear perfume, then there can be several types of, or there can be two main types of penalties for this. So number one is if you cover a large portion of your body, right? So if you cover a large portion of your body, like a limb, right? So a limb, like a hand is a limb, or an arm, or, like your face, or your leg, foot, something like that. Then you have to slaughter an animal. You call it dam. You got to give dam, which means you basically slaughter an animal, right? So Bismillah, Allahu Akbar, slaughter an animal. That's the compensation for this. If, however, you have not put perfume on an entire limb, so not on the full hand, just a bit of the hand, then in that case you have to give sadaqah. So anything less, you have to give sadaqah. Sadaqah is just charity. You give it to the poor, right? So those are the two things. If you wear perfume. So when we're talking about perfume, we're talking about something which is designed to be a perfume, used as a perfume, not something which just naturally gives off a nice fragrance. So for example, if someone eats a nice fruit that naturally gives off a fragrance, then there's no issue there. But if you were to, I don't know, maybe use some sort of like I don't know, soap or something that had perfume put inside of it that smells like that, then you would be considered to be committing one of these crimes. So إذا تطيب المحرم. So when a muhrim he perfumes himself, فعليه الكفارة, then he has to give compensation or expiation. فإن طيب عضوا كاملا, if he perfumes a complete limb, فما زاد, and anything more than that, فعليه الدم, then he has to give a sacrificial animal. وإن طيب أقل من عضو, but if he was to perfume less than one عضو, less than one limb, فعليه صدقة, then he only gives sadaqah. Okay, so this is the first thing that we have to understand when it comes to these crimes. Second crime that is committed, or offense that's committed against the state of Ihram, which is called a jinayah, right? Offenses, is if a person this is for a man, he wears stitched clothes. Stitched clothing. So you're wearing stitched clothes, just like I'm wearing this, thobe. So this thobe is actually stitched together from various pieces. So if you wear clothing that's stitched together, it's got stitches around it, then you have broken the rules of Ihram, right? So this is considered to be something that will necessitate, or potentially can necessitate, sacrificial animal. Or if you cover up certain parts. So which part do you cover up? You just wear a normal cloth, even if it's not stitched. Like let's say you got a towel or a bed sheet and you covered up. For a man, it's the head. And for a woman, so for the man it's the head and feet. And for a woman, it's considered to be the face. The face. Right? She covers her face. So let's look at this then. So he says, what in labisa, if a person was to wear makhitan, stitched clothing. So you wore it, like you put your arms into it, trousers, you put it on like that, or underwear. Or ghatta ra'sahu, or a man covers his, this is for a man, okay. A woman obviously covers her head. Yawman kamilan, for a complete day, fa'alayhi damun. So remember, this is a complete day now. So let's just write that over here. This is if it's done for a full day. Right, so this is full day. Okay, so وَإِنْ كَانَ أَقَلَّ مِنْ ذَلِكَ, but if it's not a full day, if it's half a day, if it's half a day, less, فَعَلَيْهِ صَدَقَةٌ, then he only has to give sadaqah. Right, so in other words, this covering up, this is all determined, not like the perfume. The perfume is just as soon as you put it on, you have to give the compensation. But wearing stitched clothes and covering yourself, like nowadays wearing like a mask on your face, if it's for the full day, if it's for the full day, yawman kamilan, you have to sacrifice an animal. But if it's not for a full day, like if it's for 10 hours, or if it's like for 5 hours, then you don't have to give you don't have to give a dam, you don't have to slaughter animal, where you give sadaqah. Okay, so this is what they mean by the wearing the stitched or covering a woman covering her face if she wears a niqab or a mask, or a man puts on his head, something like that. Okay, next. What in halaqa? Now the next one is, what about something like shaving? So you're not allowed to. This is the third type of thing. Let me just put it over here. Right. So the third is when it comes to shaving, removal of hair. So this is number 3. Put it over here. So number 3, removal of hair and nails. Yeah, so cutting nails, removing hair, shaving hair, cutting nails. You're not supposed to take anything from your body, basically. The idea is you're supposed to leave yourself in a disheveled state, in an unkempt state. So by cutting yourself, you're cutting your nails or cutting your hair, you're beautifying yourself, which is not something that you should do in ihram. So in halaqa, if a person was to cut, how much? Rub'a ra'sihi fasa'idan, a quarter of the head now. So it's not the whole head. Even if you cut a quarter of your hair, yeah, quarter, whether it's for a man or whether it's for a woman or more, yeah, a quarter or more, then you have to give dam. Yeah, dam if you do that. So this is why it says فَعَلَيْهِ dam. Now what if you were to cut less than this? وَإِنْ حَلَقَ أَقَلَّ مِنَ الرُّبْ فَعَلَيْهِ صَدَقَةٌ. Right, so if your person was to cut less than this, yeah, so a person was to cut less than a quarter, just like maybe a little bit over here you cut, or maybe a little bit beard over here, then you only have to give sadaqah. Now I don't know if you guys have done umrah or not, but you find this out when you go for hajj and umrah. Sometimes you don't want to break the rules, so you got to be a bit extra careful about these things. وَإِنْ حَلَقَ مَوَادِئَ الْمَحَاجِمِ مِنَ الرَّقَبَةِ فَعَلَيْهِ الدَّمْ. Now here is an ikhtilafi issue, an issue which is raised. So if a person is doing hijama, let me show you an image of hijama. So if you can see over here, these areas over here, right? These are called the mahajim, the places of hijama. They put these cups on, but before they put these cups on, they shave the hair. If you got any hair on the surface of your skin, then she shaved that off. So it's saying on the raqaba, this is the raqaba area. Okay, on the raqaba area, if a person was to shave these off, does a person have to give sadaqah or dam? What is it? So there's an ikhtilaf between Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah and between Abu Yusuf and Muhammad on this masla. So Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah, if I in fact just write this down over here. So this issue with regards to what we call the mahajim, right? So this is a person's back, this is their neck, that's their head. So if a person has hijama done on their neck, yeah, mawadi al-hijam, and they've shaved that, not all of it, just those little spots there, they shave that. Does that person have to give anything? So he says, in halaqa fa'alayhi dam. In halaqa mawadi al-mahajim fa'alayhi ad-dam. Then he's got to give dam. It's according to Imam Hanifa. Abu Yusuf and Muhammad say no. Alayhi sadaqah. Yeah, you only have to give sadaqah because you're not doing the whole thing. You only have to give sadaqah. Right, so that's an ikhtilaf between Imam Abu Hanifa and Imam Abu Yusuf on this particular masala. Okay, let's move down then. Right, next. What about clipping nails then? Clipping nails. Yeah, so clipping nails, what's the ruling for this? If a person clips their nails, do they have to give? So the ruling for the nails, yeah, so above we did mention about the hair. I'll just mention this about nails separately. So when it comes to nails, it's basically if a person was to cut the nails of all their hands and feet, then they obviously have to give dam. Okay, that's straightforward. But what is the minimum amount that you can cut and you don't have to give dam? Yeah, so they say if you were to cut less than 5 nails, so less than 5 nails, right, then sadaqah. and then everything else you got to give them. Okay, so what if you cut on separate hands and separate feet? So you cut five in separate locations. So let's say on each hand, on one finger, on another finger, on one foot, on another foot, like that. What about that? So this is where there's a difference between Imam Abu Hanifa, Abu Yusuf and Muhammad. Right? So let's have a look at this. So he says, وَإِن, so this is the nails masala, وَإِن قَصَّ, if a person was to cut الظَّافِير, the nails of their hands and feet, فَعَلَيْهِ الدَّمْ, clearly they're going to have to give dam, like we said over here. Okay, so وَإِن قَصَّ, if a person was to cut أَقَلَّ مِنْ خَمْسَةِ أَظَافِرْ مُتَفَرِّقَةٍ. Now, this is actually, a mistake here, because all the other books do not mention خَمْسَ مِنْ. They just say 5, and 5 makes sense. So it's not really less than 5, it's actually 5. That's the masala. So whoever cuts 5 nails on different hands. So what does this mean then? So let's say, for example, like a person has obviously, hands. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Sorry about this. Clown-shaped hands. And then feet, obviously. So imagine this is. So over here, if a person was to cut, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, then they have to give sadaqah. If, however, a person was to cut 5, 2, 3, 4, 5, then they have to give dam. That's what we're saying. وَإِنْ قَسَّ يَدًا أَوْ رِجْلًا فَعَلَيْهِ الدَّمْ. So nails of one hand. But less than that, like you say, then there's sadaqah. The question here is this: is what if a person was to cut not 5 on each hand? So let's say, for example, like 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 4, yeah? Then obviously there's nothing. But what if there's an extra one there? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So Imam Muhammad says you have to give them. So he counts, he basically collects all of the cuttings. So he says that the 5 cuttings, irrespective of where they occur, you have to give them. That's his position on this. But Imam Abu Hanifa and Abu Yusuf say no. They say that in fact, as long as you do not have 5 on one hand or one foot, you don't have to give sadaqah. So in other words, let's say you had 1, 2, 3, 4, and no dam, only sadaqah. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 8 altogether. No. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. No. So 16 altogether. You don't have to give them. So they say that you treat each limb separately, whereas Imam Muhammad says you put them all together. Right? So he uses the rule of the ruba', the quarter rule. So as long as it reaches a quarter, it's as though you have like the hair one. Does that make sense? Yeah. Whereas Imam Abu Hanifa and Abu Yusuf, no, that quarter rule is restricted for each limb separately. So this is why over here he says. So this is why I said, this is not found in the other texts. So I've checked through the other texts. It seems as though this is a mistake. I've even looked in, the Qudoori PDF as well and the hard copy, and many of them have this mistake. So if you look in Jawharatul Nayr, and Jawharatul Nayr doesn't have it. Right, so in qassa aqalla, so aqalla is not there. Khamsata adhafir, in that case this would be fatha then. It'd be a fatha there. So khamsata adhafir min yadayhi wa rijlayhi, from his hands and his feet, فَعَلَيْهِ صَدَقَةً, according to Abu Hanifa and Abu Yusuf. وقال Muhammad, and Muhammad says عليه الدم, he has to give them. Yeah, so like we said, Imam Muhammad, he says you got 20 fingers and toes altogether. If you cut at least 5, that means you've reached your limit of a quarter. And Abu Hanifa and Abu Yusuf say that's fine, but we don't put all of the hands and feet together. Each one is separate, is treated separately. Okay, finally, last masla now. So alhamdulillah, that masla is done. finally, last masala. So last masala is this one. So, in tatayyaba aw halaqa. Let's put it over here. In tatayyaba, if a person was to perfume. So, number one, a person was to perfume or they were to shave or they were to wear clothing, so wear stitch clothing or cover up. In all these, but they did it because there was a valid excuse, like they were ill or something like that reason, very, very cold. So if there's anything of that sort and this happens, then what? Then you have a choice of the kafara. So what's the choice of the kafara then? So you can either slaughter an animal, a goat, so dam, or number two, you can feed 6 poor people. So 6 poor people, the amount of 3 sa'. So in other words, half a sa' per person. Or if you have a choice of fasting 3 days fast. So you got this choice. This is if a person has a valid excuse. So this is what he's saying over here. وَإِن تَطَيَّبَ, if a person was to perfume or halaqa, shave, or labisa, or wear clothing min udhrin, due to a valid reason, فَهُوَ مُخَيَّر, then this person has a choice. In sha'a, if he wills, ذَبَحَ شَاتًا, they can slaughter an animal. وَإِن شَاءً, if he wishes, he can tasaddaqa, give sadaqah, ala 6 masakin, 6 poor people, with 3 sa'. Sa' is about 3.2 liters. So 3 of those works out to be about 9.6, min ta'am, of food, and food will refer to something like wheat or something like that. What in sha'an, if he wishes, sama, he fasts 3 days. And there you have it. So these are considered to be the jinayat. Now there are some more, right? So there are some more. This is not the full chapter. There still are some more for us to cover. But just to recap what we covered today. So we discussed the issue of perfuming, right? So perfuming, if you do a full limb, then it's dam. Less than a full limb, then it's sadaqah only. And if a person wears stitched clothing, a man or a woman covers up the places they're not supposed to cover up, then they have to give dam, right? Full day. But if it's less than a full day, then they only give sadaqah. And number 3 is the removal of bodily hair and body nails. So if a person was to remove a quarter of or more, they have to give dam. And if it's less than a quarter, only sadaqah. And about nails, so nails, if you take off all the nails, cut all the nails, you got to give dam. If you cut less than 5 on one limb, then there's sadaqah. But if you cut 5 separate on separate limbs, right, it all adds up to 5. And according to Imam Muhammad, yes, you have to give dam. And according to Abu Hanifa and Abu Yusuf, you have to give sadaqah. And sadaqah is about half a sa'. They say it's about half a sa'. Something like that, on that lines. So you're roughly looking at about maybe like £2, £3. And that's it, guys. And finally, if a person has an excuse of why he does this, then they have a choice. They're not forced to do one option. They've got actually dam option, feeding 6 poor people, or fast 3 days. Okay. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Let's look at the questions now. Let's see what kind of questions we've got. Okay, so questions. List 4 jinayat of Ihram. So the 4 you can list are, number 1 is the perfuming. Number 2 is the covering of certain limbs. Number 3, you can say even stitching. Number 4, you can say the shaving or the clipping. So you've got a whole list there that you can choose from. What happens if a person perfumes their face? If a person perfumes their face, the full face, then they have to give dam, right? What happens if a woman covers her head? So if a woman covers her head, trick question, nothing happens because she's allowed to cover her head. It's the man that can't cover his head. What does it mean that you can't wear stitched clothing? So this is for men. Men are not allowed to wear stitched clothing like shirts and trousers and things like that. What is the ikhtilaf about shaving the place of hijama? So the ikhtilaf about shaving of the place of hijama is with regards to the neck. And as on your neck, if you have the hijama and you have to shave the hair, there's an ikhtilaf between Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah and between others. Okay, what happens if a person cuts 8 nails out of 20 fingers and toes? Trick question. So you've got 20 fingers and toes. If you cut 8, yeah. So if you cut 5 on one hand, then you got to give them. So 5 on one hand, 3 on the other, you got to give them. But if you have on separate parts of the body, then according to Imam Muhammad, you have to give them because you've reached your limit of 5. According to Abu Hanifa and Abu Yusuf, then it's fine because as long as you haven't cut more than 5 on one hand, 5 or more on one limb. So they got to give sadaqah in that case. What does it mean if you have an excuse, you have a choice of kafara? So what it basically means is that if you have an excuse of perfuming or wearing stitched clothes or shaving, then you have a choice of either slaughtering an animal, feeding 6 poor people, or fasting 3 days. And that's it, guys. Jazakumullah khair. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you guys enjoyed this lesson. If you have any sort of questions, suggestions, please put them in the comments below. And also, if you like the work that I do, then please consider becoming a patron, a supporter of my channel. If you would like to support me on a monthly basis, then you can use this Patreon link in the description below. And if you just want to make a one-off donation, then you can also do that as well through PayPal. I appreciate everything that you guys do for the channel, support that you give. It means a lot to me because it's something really close to my heart. And hopefully, inshallah, you get sadaqah jari as well for it. Right, guys, take care, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.